but heaven does. Oil lamps flicker along stone streets worn smooth by centuries of faithful feet. Families gather behind closed doors, voices low and reverent, reciting prayers older than memory itself. The holy city hums with sacred purpose, wrapped in the golden warmth of Passover celebration. Smoke rises from temple altars. Children ask their fathers the meaning of this night. And somewhere above the crowded streets, a staircase leads to a quiet upper room where 12 men and their teacher will soon gather around a simple table. But tonight is not simply about the exodus from Egypt. Tonight, something eternal is being set in motion. This is the night that changed everything. And it begins here, with a man who chose love when he could have chosen otherwise. He walked with purpose, surrounded by the 12 men who had followed him across dusty roads, through storms, and into places where hope seemed lost. They laughed softly among themselves, unaware of what this night truly carried. But Jesus knew. He knew the weight of every step. He knew what the darkness beyond this evening would demand of him. He knew the betrayal, the denial, the suffering that waited just beyond the warmth of the upper room. And yet, he walked forward, not out of obligation, not out of duty alone, but out of love. A love so vast, so deliberate, so completely selfless that nothing, not even the cross, could turn him away from it. Tonight, I believe, is no different, as Peter and John moved quietly, arranging the Passover table with careful hands. Peter paused, setting down a clay cup slowly. Peter, there is something heavy in the air tonight, John. I have felt it since we left the city gate. This night feels unlike any other we have known. John looked up from the table, his voice low and steady. John. He told us exactly where to go, Peter. The man carrying the water jar, the room already prepared. Something sacred and sorrowful was unfolding before them, something none of them possessed the words to name, yet something none of them could deny. One by one, the 12 gathered around the long, low table, reclining in the ancient custom of the Passover feast. The oil lamps cast a warm, golden glow across every face. Jesus looked around the table slowly, his eyes resting on each disciple with unmistakable tenderness. Then he spoke. Jesus said, "With all my heart, I have longed to share this Passover meal with you before my suffering begins." Matthew's expression shifted immediately. He leaned slightly forward, his voice careful but troubled. Matthew asked, "Master, did you say suffering?" A quiet unease moved through the room like a slow current. The one who commanded the winds and the waves now held the dust of human feet in his hands, showing them exactly what love truly looks like. Jesus rose from the table, not to speak, not to teach. He removed his outer robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, poured water into a basin, and knelt before his disciples. The Son of God began washing their feet. When he reached Peter, everything stopped. Peter pulled back, his voice breaking with disbelief. "Lord, are you washing my feet?" "Never. You shall never wash my feet." Jesus looked up at him with quiet certainty. "If I do not wash you, Peter, you have no part with me." The words landed like a stone in still water. Peter's resistance crumbled instantly. "Then, Lord, not just my feet. Wash my hands and my head as well." Narrator. They did not yet understand. But this moment, this meal, this table, would be carried in their hearts forever. The sound of quiet voices, the breaking of bread, the gentle clinking of cups. Jesus sits among them, watching each face with a love so deep it seems to hold the weight of eternity. Thomas sets down his cup slowly and speaks what everyone is feeling. Thomas, something is different tonight. I can feel it in my chest, like the air before a storm. No one answers immediately. The others exchange glances, chewing slowly, eyes cast downward. Then John, seated closest to Jesus, lifts his gaze with quiet certainty. John, whatever is coming, he is not afraid, and so I will not be afraid either. Jesus says nothing. He simply looks at them, one by one, with eyes full of tender sorrow and immeasurable love. Judas said nothing. No one else understood what had just passed between them. Jesus set down his cup slowly, and the warmth of the room seemed to grow still. His voice came low and deliberate, cutting through the quiet like a blade. Jesus, truly I tell you, one of you will betray me. The words landed like stones into still water. Every disciple froze. Peter, surely not I, Lord. Andrew, is it me? Matthew, Lord, could it be me? Voices overlapped, trembling with disbelief and grief. Judas rose slowly from the table, his sandals scraping against the stone floor as he moved toward the door. For one suspended moment, he stood at the threshold, caught between two worlds. Behind him, the warm golden glow of oil lamps bathed the room in sacred light, where 11 men still sat in the presence of the Son of God. Before him stretched the Jerusalem night, vast and consuming, cold and absolute. The narrator's voice fell low and measured, carrying the full weight of what this single step meant. Judas did not look back. He crossed through the doorway, and the darkness received him completely, swallowing his silhouette until nothing remained. The door did not slam. There was only silence, and the flickering of lamps, and the quiet breathing of those who stayed. Then the narrator spoke the words that would echo through all of history. And it was night. That is enough. Remember only that. Jesus lifts his eyes slowly, then reaches for the bread. Every disciple watches in complete silence as he breaks it gently, deliberately, with hands that tremble not from fear, but from love. He speaks barely above a whisper. Take and eat. This is my body, broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Then he lifts the cup, and his voice deepens with quiet authority. This cup is the new covenant in my blood, poured out for many. Tears fall without shame around the table. Hands receive the bread with trembling reverence. Jesus set down his cup slowly, and the room grew still. Every eye turned toward him, drawn by something in his voice that carried both tenderness and absolute authority. A new commandment I give to you, he said, that you love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. The words landed softly, but with tremendous weight. Andrew closed his eyes. Bartholomew pressed his hands together. James leaned forward as though afraid to miss a single syllable. Jesus continued, his gaze moving across each face with unmistakable love. By this, he said, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. No one spoke. The oil lamps flickered gently. The commandment did not feel like a rule. It felt like an inheritance, something being placed carefully into their hands, something they were now responsible to carry into the world. No one spoke. The contrast between Peter's burning loyalty and Jesus' quiet, grieving certainty hung in the air like something sacred and unbearable, one of the most deeply human moments of the entire evening. Lord, he said, wherever you go, I will go. I will lay down my very life for you. The words rang through the upper room with the force of absolute conviction. The other disciples watched him, some nodding, some silent, all feeling the weight of his devotion. But Jesus did not smile. He looked at Peter with eyes full of sorrow and love intertwined, the kind of gaze that sees past every bold declaration into the trembling heart beneath. His voice came quietly, almost gently, as though delivering the most painful truth imaginable. Peter, before the rooster crows tonight, you will deny me 3 times. The room fell completely still. Peter's face shifted, confusion and hurt crossing it like shadows. And none of them were ready, though Jesus had been preparing them all evening long. The crackling of the oil lamps filled the room where voices had moments before been full of passion and declaration. Peter sat motionless, his earlier boldness now dissolved into something quieter, something heavier. His eyes were fixed on the table, unable to meet the gaze of the one who had just spoken his name with such sorrow and such love. Around him, the others sat equally still. Thomas stared at his hands. Matthew looked toward the door where Judas had disappeared. Andrew breathed slowly, as though afraid to disturb the sacred stillness that had settled over them all. They did not fully understand. They could not yet see what morning would bring, what the next hours would demand, what love would cost. John later said he could not explain it, only that in that moment, despite everything they feared was coming, they felt completely held. "Do not let your hearts be troubled," he said. His voice was steady, like still water over ancient stone. "You believe in God, believe also in me." The disciples leaned closer. No one reached for food, no one spoke. They simply listened, as though each word was being pressed gently into their chests. "I will not leave you as orphans," he continued. "I will come to you." Andrew exhaled quietly. James closed his eyes. "Love one another," Jesus said again, returning to the commandment like a man returning home. "As I have loved you, so you must love one another." The meal is finished, but the story is only beginning. The warmth of the upper room surrounds them still, golden lamplight flickering across faces carrying the weight of everything spoken and shared throughout this sacred night. Jesus moves first, calm and unhurried, as though each step is chosen with eternal purpose. The disciples follow in quiet reverence, no longer speaking, simply present in the holiness of the moment. At the doorway, the world outside waits in cool blue darkness. Jerusalem breathes quietly beneath a Passover moon, unaware of what this night has set into motion. The narrator returns, voice low and steady. The bread has been broken, the cup has been lifted, the commandment has been given. And now the most important journey in human history is about to begin. The moonlight falls across the ancient stones of Jerusalem, casting long and quiet shadows as Jesus leads his disciples through the sleeping city. Their sandaled footsteps echo softly in the stillness of the night. The narrator speaks, voice low and trembling with the weight of what is coming. Ahead lies the garden, where knees will press into cold earth and prayers will rise like incense into heaven. Beyond that, the cross, where love will be stretched wide enough to cover every sin ever committed by every soul who would ever live. This is the greatest act of love the world would ever see, and it begins with a quiet walk through moonlit streets. The silhouettes grow smaller against the vast dark sky. The orchestra swells, rising like a tide of holy sorrow and breathtaking grace. The screen slowly fades to darkness, and the audience sits in reverent, speechless awe.